hmm Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Vinny's Retro Review on this Sportsless Saturday. I believe the first Sportsless Saturday I've ever endured since I was about 6 years old. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the game that won the poll through my classic sports club, 1980. It's week 6 now. The San Diego Chargers coming into the game at 4-1, traveling up north to Oakland to play the Raiders, who are 2-3, and coming off a devastating season-ending broken leg to their starting quarterback, Dan Pastorini. So they have to go with Jim Plunkett, who coming into this game was not much more than a glorified bust, being drafted in 1971 by the New England Patriots. Never got anything going there. Got unseated by Steve Grogan, headed off to San Francisco for a couple of very forgettable years before ending up in Oakland, where he was going to sit second fiddle to Pastorini, and then ended up starting on October 12th, 1980. Let's go down to the game. As I said, the Raiders, who are coached by Tom Flores, are 2-3 coming into this game, while the Chargers and Don Coryell, are 4-1. We are at Oakland Alameda County Coliseum for a 4 o'clock Eastern kickoff on NBC with Merlin Olsen and Dick Enberg commentating. In the first quarter, Kenny King rips off a 31-yard run. Chris Barr hits the extra point, and the Raiders lead 7-0. And it really was that, just untouched. After some back and forth punts, John Cappelletti, the former Heisman Trophy winning running back, gets it into the end zone for the Chargers. Rolf Benerski, just about a year after potentially losing his life, is back on the field and kicks the extra point. And after one, the game is tied at 7 between the Raiders and Chargers. In the second, Chris Barr hits a 42-yard field goal, and the Raiders lead 10-7. Then Rolf Benerski hits a 25-yard field goal to tie the game at 10 late in the second quarter before Plunkett catches on and fires a 43-yard strike to Cliff Branch. Branch, the replacement for Fred Biletnikoff. And with Barr's kick, the Raiders lead 17-10 going into half. Then in the third quarter, some back and forth action again before Mark Van Egan, the running back out of Colgate, runs it in from 3 yards out. Barr hits the extra point, and it's 24-10 Raiders. Then John Jefferson, who had himself a huge day, catches a 25-yard pass from Dan Fouts. Rolf Benerski hits the extra point, cuts the game to 24-17 as the third quarter comes to an end. We go back and forth several more times. Dan Fouts actually scores a touchdown at some point. It gets called back. Actually, I think that was in the second quarter by holding. And heading into the fourth quarter, trailing by 7, the Chargers drive down the field. Some big catches by and Kellen Winslow before Dan Fouts runs it into from 1 yard out. Benerski's extra point is good, and it's 24-all. Let me back up a little bit and talk about a sequence that happened where Jim Plunkett was scrambling, gets away from one man, heads downfield, is falling backwards, and a Charger defender comes in with a forearm. Actually, we're doing a forearm this way to the back of Plunkett's head, taking him out for 3 plays, or maybe 4 plays, in which Mark Wilson came in, the rookie, the number 1 overall draft pick for the Raiders, not overall in general, but for the Raiders' number 1 pick, comes in, completes his first pass to Bob Chandler before throwing an absolute stupid, ill-advised duck that was almost intercepted. Plunkett sitting on the sideline, though, and in those days, the concussion thing wasn't an issue. It was before concussion protocol. Sitting on the sideline says, "I'm not letting this kid take my job." Goes back and fires a strike to Bob Chandler, saying, "See what you can do, I can do better," and that led to Van Egan's touchdown. Okay, now we're back forward. The Chargers have tied the game at 24. They kick off to the Raiders. There's a penalty, bringing the Raiders back to the 11-yard line. On first play, after that penalty, Kenny King, who scored earlier, goes 89 yards, which at this point, and maybe it still is, was the longest run from scrimmage in Raider history, beating Jack Larscheid's record from the early 60s of 87 yards. Now, just a side note, a personal note on Larscheid, when I tried to put his name into the EA generator for Sack the Future, it rejected it because apparently Larscheid is an offensive term, or something in the middle of Larscheid is offensive. But anyway, so the Raiders scored that quick, and with Barr's kick lead 31-24, and then comes the next kickoff. Chuck Muncie muffs it. The ball goes bouncing backwards. Now on a muff, which also, by the way, is an offensive term to EA Sports, even though it's a football term. Of course, we all know why muff is offensive. The ball is bouncing, and it's bouncing around, and on a muff, you can't advance it. So in order for what to happens, it lands in the end zone where Todd Christensen falls on it and scores his first touchdown, and then gets up and does quite a unique little dance before spiking it. Maybe he's got a future in television. Chris Barr hits the extra point, and it's 38-24. A nice big return from Muncie after that. Not to be, the Chargers do not gain anything after, or do not score anything, and the final score is Oakland 38, San Diego 24. Oakland will go to Pittsburgh in Week 7. You can vote for that game. San Diego, I forget who they've got in Week 7, but trust me, if you want to see who I'm going to talk about next week, go join Classic Sports Club. Go search for it on Facebook. Join it. The voting starts Monday. Now, for statistical leaders in this game. Oh, by the way, at kickoff, it was 62 degrees in Oakland at the County Coliseum. And Fouts threw for 388 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, but there were 4 fumbles that caused by the Chargers. They turned the ball over 6 times, and they're lucky they only lost by 14. The leading rusher for the Chargers, Chuck Muncie, 7 carries, 39 yards. Leading receiver, there were 2 receivers that went over 100 yards. Charlie Joyner was the leader, though, with 135, but John Jefferson had 114 on 5 catches. Jim Plunkett threw for 164 yards and 1 touchdown, 11 of 14, though very solid, and 2 big runs for 18 yards with a long of 14, and that was where he took that forearm shot. But the leading rusher was Kenny King, man. 12 carries, 138 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including a 31 and an 89-yarder. And the leading receiver for the Raiders, Dave Casper, the ghost to the post, who apparently, according to the discussion that we had amongst the members, was on the trade block and quite possibly could be the last game for him in a Raider uniform. That would be just weird. On defense, who got the interceptions? Well, Mike Davis, 1 interception, 38-yard return. It was a big interception, too. Monty Jackson, 1 for nothing. And that's it for the interceptions. Pro Football Reference doesn't list who had all the fumble recoveries. Other games around the league in Week 6, the New York Jets get their first victory, upsetting the Atlanta Falcons. And what's cool about this game is we actually flipped this game during the watching. The game's on YouTube, by the way. The Raiders-Chargers game is on YouTube, so you can find it. They actually flipped to the game during some kind of, I don't know, somebody turned the channel the way their VCR was hooked up. And we saw a couple plays of the Falcons and Jets, but not the ones we, anything of scoring. Baltimore knocks Buffalo off from their perch. Buffalo's no longer undefeated as Burt Jones has a big day, throwing a big touchdown to Mike Siani, and the Colts win 17-12. The Rams beat the Cardinals 21-13. The Rams are back in control of their own destiny, heading toward the playoffs. Dallas Cowboys. Oh, this game, I'm glad I didn't see it. This would have been nuts for me, as I hate the Cowboys, and you know that. Defeat the San Francisco 49ers 59-14. At this point in 49er history, the playoff run, a Super Bowl, whatever, looks way far off, and Bill Walsh looks to be in trouble. Detroit Lions get back from losing in Week 5 to beat the Saints, who are winless 24-13. Poor Archie Manning, man. The Kansas City Chiefs upset the Houston Oilers 21-20. The Minnesota Vikings edged the Chicago Bears 13-7. The New England Patriots just destroy Miami up in Foxborough 34-0. Almost looks like a 2016-2020 score. It's the Philadelphia Eagles continuing to win, beating the New York Giants 31-16. The Cincinnati Bengals get only their second win of the year in 1980, beating the Pittsburgh Steelers 17-16. Both wins against Terry Bradshaw and the Steelers, who are 4-2. The Cleveland Browns up in the Kingdome beat the Seattle Seahawks 27-3. Brian Sipe has a big day. Green Bay and Tampa Bay in the Battle of the Bays finished with a 14-14 tie, and a man named Richard Wood for the Buccaneers gets an interception. And, of course, on Monday Night Football the following night would be the Broncos beating the Redskins 20-17. So, my thoughts on the game. First of all, there's something really strange at the end of the tape, too. If you continue watching through the end of the game, you start getting that VCR quality, the thing ends and it goes into something that's older, and that older that was on the tape before happens to be what appears to be an AP newsfeed channel, which I don't know anything about. When I worked at I didn't work at a radio station. A buddy of mine worked at a radio station. I used to go hang out with him. They had this printer. This was 1995, 95. So the internet was just getting started, but they had this printer that would shoot out AP news stories. What a waste of paper. But back in 95, recycling was a thing, but that's how you got your news. So it would print out the news stories every 10 minutes on a 10-minute type ticker. And this is what this channel kind of reminded me of. And there were some interesting stories about a prison riot in New Mexico. The date stamp said February 3rd, and we figured out it was 1980 because they were previewing the Olympics. So anyway, find that game on YouTube if you want to watch a really good game. Although 38-24 doesn't appear to be a good game, but trust me, It's a good game. Again, if you want to have a say in who I'm going to talk about next Saturday for Week 7, remember, it's the year's ending in 0. Go join Classic Sports Club. Vote. You have to click on the announcements now. Between Monday and Wednesday, the votes are the primary votes to determine who will be the nominee for each year, 2010, 2000, 1990, and 1980. You have to click on the announcements to see all 4 votes. Then those winners will join, if there's any radio broadcast or a Monday night game from 1970, in the general election starting Wednesday evening, and will run through Friday. And then Saturday night, we'll discuss the game. What was the life like in the world in 1980 when we actually had sports and people could leave their houses and you didn't have to worry about toilet paper shortages? Well, in pro wrestling, if you go to cagematch.net and do a search, there were 4 events around the world in 1980. On October 12th, the Pacific Northwest Wrestling had a show up in Portland, Oregon. New Japan had a show in Ryotsu, Niigata, Japan. Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, or Jim Crockett Promotions, ran a show in Raleigh, North Carolina. And Tampa, Florida Championship Wrestling held a show. Interesting notes from these. I'm not going to go through the whole cards because you don't want to hear me discuss that. Up in Portland, Oregon, not a lot. Jay Youngblood was on the card. He teamed with Joe Lightfoot. Playboy Buddy Rose defeated Mike Popovich in hair versus hair match. I don't know who Mike Popovich is, but Playboy Buddy Rose is notable for being the man who lost the very first match in WrestleMania under a mask, known as the Executioner. Now, who would wear a mask, really? Unless you're a luchador. I'm no luchador. New Japan, in Ryotsu, Niigata, Japan, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, held a show at the City Gymnasium. Hulk Hogan teamed with Jim Garvin and Paul Orndorff in a best 2 out of 3 falls match to defeat Antonio Inoki, Kengo Kimura, and Tatsumi Fujinami 2 falls to 1 in 7 minutes and 1 second. I tell you, this Hogan character, this Hogan kid, he looks like they have a bright future. Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling ran a show at Raleigh, North Carolina. Greg Valentine defending the NWA United States Championship against Ric Flair goes to a draw. That sounds like a good match. Roddy Piper was on the card, as was the Sheepherders, who you may know as the Bushwhackers. They were the NWA Mid-Atlantic Tag Team Champions. They fought Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer and Maniac Matt Bourne, who, by the way, was also on the WrestleMania 1 card and also lost a match. Championship Wrestling from Florida ran at the Fort Homer Hesterly Armory in Tampa, Florida. Things of note there, NWA Southern Heavyweight Champion Jack Briscoe defeated Dick Slater by DQ in a title match. So that was wrestling on October 12th, 1980. I was 18 months old at the time, so I don't remember any of this. If you go to takemeback.to, it gives you, this is I'll just go through the big information. Sunday, October 12th, under the sign of Libra, if you care about that. U.S. President was Jimmy Carter, with the election less than a month away. And let's see, another one, Bites the Dust, was number 1 song by Queen. And in the UK, it was Don't Stand So Close to Me by the Police. I don't know that song. I'm not going to sing it. I'm not going to ask Google to sing it because then I'll get my video. We'll get, let's see, what are the movies? It's My Turn. Dostana, that sounds like it's Indian. From Indian. Times Square, starring Tim Curry. Never heard of that movie. Fooling Around, starring Gary Busey. Oh, that one. And Private Benjamin. There's a movie. Goldie Hawn. I know that one. The writer's strike has ended in television world, but no new first-run TV shows are coming yet. Famous people born on October 12th, 1980. Claudia Jansen, whoever that is. Soledad Pastorelli, and Ledley King. I don't know any of those people. 7 stabbed in a Blood, Sweat, and Tears concert in Los Angeles on that night. That's a shame. What else is on the pop charts? Let's see. Sports games. Okay, so we went over the NFL scores. That night was Game 5 of the National League Championship Series, in which the Philadelphia Phillies would defeat the Houston Astros to advance to the World Series, which they haven't won a World Series in Philadelphia in almost 100 years, 1883. Going up against the Kansas City Royals, of course, had never won a World Series. So 1980's World Series would definitely have been a very unique situation. College football. College football played the day before. I'm just going to give you the highlights, the top 25. If I can scroll that far. On October 11th, number 1 Alabama defeating Rutgers 17-13. Number 15 Arkansas over Wichita State 27-7. Number 18 Baylor defeats number 20 Southern Methodist 32-28. It is, did I just change the camera? Okay. Number 11 Florida State upsetting number 4 Pitt 36-22. Number 6 Georgia, my Bulldogs, defeats Mississippi 28-21. Number 19 Missouri over Oklahoma State 30-7. Number 10 Nebraska destroys Kansas 54-0. Number 8 North Carolina over Wake Forest 27-9. Number 7 Notre Dame, go Irish, beating Jim Kelly and the number 13 Miami Hurricanes 32-14. Was number 9 Ohio State over Northwestern 63-0. My God, call off the Dogs. Number 14 Penn State beating Maryland 24-10. Number 17 South Carolina defeating Duke 20-7. Number 2 USC, led by guys like Ronnie Lott and Ronnie Lott and Marcus Allen, defeating Arizona 27-10. Number 3 Texas over number 12 Oklahoma 20-13 in the Red River rivalry. Number 5 UCLA defeats number 16 Stanford 35-21. So some interesting games in college football. The NBA had just started. It was just a couple days old. In fact, my Bulls were 0-1. But on October 12th, the Utah Jazz defeated the Denver Nuggets 125-121 in overtime. The LA Lakers and Houston Rockets, Magic Johnson's second season, defeats the Rockets 114-103. It was the Phoenix Suns over the Kansas City Royals. No, that's baseball. Kansas City Kings. Yes. 119. Actually, maybe it was. Hold on a second. Kansas City what? Kansas City Kings. Okay, yeah. 109-100. And the Portland Trailblazers defeat the Seattle Supersonics 107-96. In hockey on October 12th, 1980. The Buffalo Sabres and the Whale, the Hartford Whalers, tie at 3. Boston Bruins beats Montreal Canadiens 3-2. Columbus Blue. No, that's not right. What is? The Chicago Blackhawks and the Calgary Flames tie at 3. The Colorado Rockies defeat the Edmonton Oilers 3-2. The Pittsburgh Penguins over the New York Rangers 6-3. The Toronto Maple Leafs defeat the Philadelphia Flyers 4-2. Vancouver Canucks defeat the Quebec Nordiques 8-2. And the New York Islanders defeat the Washington Capitals 2-1. Oh, baseball we talked about already. The Oakland Coliseum on television that night. The Wonderful World of Disney would be on NBC. With something about Witch Mountain, 60 Minutes on CBS, and Those Amazing Animals on ABC. Of course, new television season still had not started yet. And the weather in Saranac Lake, where I would have been 18 months old, it was 42 degrees in an overcast day. So thanks for joining us today on Vinny's Retro Review. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about life in October of 1980. And seriously, if you want to have a chance to decide what I talk about next Saturday, go join Classic Sports Club. Vote in the primaries. Vote in the general. Be around for the discussion. Until next week, I'm Vinny Vincent. God bless America.